What is up, everybody? I am back. I'm actually still, trying to get myself together, just a little bit. But first and foremost, happy draft week to everybody. One of the best weeks of the year, especially one of the best weeks for myself. I usually spend this time with my dad. We're always hype about draft week. So I'll be watching the first round. That's the tradition. I'll always watch first round of draft week, first round of the draft with my dad. And then we kind of watch every other. Then we kind of just, kind of keep our eyes on it, so to speak. But I want to, give you I don't want to say an action packed show, but a pretty entertaining show. Um, as many of you guys know, I no longer work for Prep Red Zone covering New Jersey high school football, but that is not going to stop me from covering New Jersey high school football, something I enjoy, something that I'm really passionate about. And we finally got some news. Was that last week, with Coach Bill Belton from Winslow going over to I don't know if it's St. Augustine or St. Augustine. I'm gonna say St. Aug. And bringing some of his staff over there to kind of create that South Jersey powerhouse that he spoke of in the interview that he just did with I can't remember these young men's name, but they're doing a great job. Keep going hard podcast or something like that. But he just did an interview, and talked about how there's a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of players, period. But he specifically talked about the quarterbacks who go, from South Jersey up to North Jersey. And that's why, they, have a lot of the success. A lot of the North Jersey teams have the success that they do because they, take a lot of the talent that's in South Jersey. So he was saying, what if they were able to build that, non-public A powerhouse, in South Jersey at St. Aug. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about today. Also, the Dexter Lawrence trade. If nobody has heard, Dexter Lawrence was traded for a first round for the 10th overall pick to the Bengals. He also got a 1-year extension with some new money on his deal. So I'll be diving into that. Then also, there was an interesting I'm trying to find what I'm looking for. There was an interesting discussion today on Instagram of a guy. I guess he's a new guy trying to start a podcast, but he asked the question in this NIL era: would you rather go to the University of Penn and play football, or go to Penn State for 50K of NIL and and do that? So I'm gonna kind of give my thoughts on that, just because I thought it was a very interesting conversation. I think it needs to be unpacked just a little bit more because there's pros and cons to both sides. I think it's a win-win if you do both, but I think it's mainly a pro for both. But myself, I can name a couple reasons as to why I would do both. Why both? I think both is a good idea. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna go on today. Um, I'm trying to pull up this mock draft, y'all. Like I said, as this is draft week, we do have what? I'm gonna go to the athletic instead. As you guys know, PFF was bought out by Teamworks, and now, everything is kind of in fluster on PFF.com. So now I can't get the mock drafts that I'm used to getting. So I'm gonna look, see, let me see. Here you go. I'm gonna get this one right here. And so at the end, we're gonna talk about mock draft, some of the picks that I like. So this mock draft, I believe, is coming from Dane Brugler. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is Nick Bumgarner. But I know there's some picks in here from Dane Brugler. So shout out to everybody that's watching the live. We still getting some people in here. The 2 viewers that I have, I appreciate y'all. If y'all could share this live or like it, that would be greatly appreciated, to what I'm trying to do here. Again, I'm trying to be more consistent, trying to take just get as much time on live as I possibly can. This is something I enjoy doing. I enjoy, talking sports, talking about football on every level. Oh, let me get my mic right. Hold on. Talking football on every level, and just giving my take, giving my thoughts. I'm pretty good, right? I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but I think I'm pretty good. So, I decided this year this was gonna be the year that I finally start taking my content seriously. Shout out to my girl. She always pushed me to make sure I take my content seriously too. So she's like a big reason as to why, I'm doing that. So I'm gonna consistently do that. And I'm gonna consistently, be on here, giving my takes. And so today we're gonna start with the New Jersey high school football. What happened in terms of Coach Bill Belton going from Winslow over to St. Aug. And first and foremost, if no one knows about Coach Bill Belton, he is a former alum of Winslow, right? And started at Winslow, went to Penn State, went on to do great things playing the running back position. And then, it was very, like I said, shout out to those guys. I think it's called, hold on, I want to give these young men some shout out because, it takes a lot to get up here and do a podcast and speak in front of people. And I could tell like they was just, you know, starting out. And I want to make sure I give them their props for doing what they're doing. So hold on. I'm trying to get the name of their podcast. They just did something. It's called the Keep Grinding Podcast. So shout out to them for getting Coach Belton and Coach Nash on to talk about, why they left Winslow to go to St. Aug. But again, he said he started his coaching journey, just helping out. He started it with the training business. Then his training business kind of grew over time in a situation where, he started at Timber Creek in Jersey and then he was saying that the people at Winslow didn't like that. Then he got over to Winslow, and was the OC over there. And after he was the OC for a year, he took over as the head guy. And then after he, kind of, I don't want to use the word clean, but he got the old staff out of there and kind of got more of the people that he could vibe with in there. That's when Winslow, know and love Winslow as the state championship winners that they are, back-to-back state championship winners. And now, St. Aug, had fired their coach. What was it? Pete Lancetta, I believe is his name. And then they came knocking at Coach Belton's door, and for good reason, man. One of the things that I always respected about Coach Belton, listen, I don't have a personal relationship with him, but I have spoken to him, via Twitter DMs, and I have, just congratulated him on certain things. But, one of the things I admire about him is especially last year with his, just willingness to play whoever, whenever, wherever, right? He wasn't scared of any smoke at all. If you guys don't know, his team played IMG Academy very first game of the season. And for those who don't know, for those who are watching me and don't really know like what type of school Winslow is like it's a top public school in South Jersey. And so they were playing, again, powerhouses who have, unlimited resources and massive depth across the entire roster. Teams like, again, IMG Academy. Then they play Bergen Catholic, right after that. And even in the IMG game, they were in that game. Like from the first half, they played solid football, even overcoming a wild turnover, off of a flat route pass that popped up in the air that they ultimately took back for a touchdown at Battle at the Beach. But, for the duration of that game, they were in it. And then it was, like he had said in his interview, once the second half hit, that depth, kind of kicked in. A lot of the Winslow players were getting hurt and so and stuff like that. So, that kind of showed. But, for the most part, I thought that for what Coach Belton had, I think he did the most. I mean, it was a testament to the type of coach he is, his ability to, make adjustments, his ability to just, be in there in a fire and constantly still make things happen, thus being underman, plus, being out talented, I'll say. And then he still, his staff, stood that test and still was able to put on a competitive game for the duration of the game. So I've always respected Coach Belton for that. And then now, you know, moving over to going and saying, oh, he's gonna get all of the top kids, out of South Jersey between him and Coach Breaker over at Glassboro. I mean, it's gonna be like he said in his presser, man. It's just a place where, when he spoke about why he left Winslow to go to St. Aug, he was just saying like, it's more resources, it's a better opportunity, and now it's going to be a situation where he will be able to consistently, play those non-public A powerhouses like PC, Bergen, Joe's, all of these teams. And now he kind of gets to really show what he can do with resources, with backing. I'm psyched for him. Like, I'm very excited to see, what he does. I posted on Twitter, and I was very serious about this. Whenever they're gonna do the Bergen Catholic St. Aug game, it's gonna be sponsored. I get it sponsored by Chick-fil-A. Just let me know, because I think that'll be a game to watch. And then as we analyze it, just from a roster perspective of this move, I mean, I was arguing with somebody, as I usually do on social media, of somebody, talking to me and telling me that, that I shouldn't be commenting on this situation. Let's, get one thing in perspective. I do not work for Prep Red Zone anymore, right? So now I'm just a very knowledgeable observer of New Jersey high school football, so I can comment on anything that I would please. And so they were telling me like, oh, you shouldn't be commenting on this kid, blah, 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 blah. But I was trying to tell the young man that there were like, I felt like these young men and these families knew that Coach Belton was leaving, way before this news broke. I believe it broke the beginning of last week. And then if you would saw the trail of breadcrumbs that was left, that kid Davion Roman, who by the way is probably going to be a massive contributor on Camden, and he would have been a massive contributor on Winslow, because if you watched him last year, he showed some flashes that he could be a consistent wide receiver who can catch tough passes and have concentration, in tight moments. And I was very impressed when I watched him. But he transferred. He was the first transfer. He transferred from Winslow to Camden. And that like signaled a red flag right there. I'm like, why is it doing it? Because Winslow is a top program. They're back-to-back state champions. Right. So I was like, that's weird. So that was April 2nd when the transfer was announced. Right. So obviously he would have had to understand that beforehand, to get his transfer in and make sure everything was straight. Because in New Jersey, when you transfer, you got to sit out a couple games, which sucks, but it just kind of is what it is. So he transferred. Then what was the massive red flag was Azor Hurd. He transferred. And I'm like, why is he transferring to Glassboro? Now, Glassboro and Winslow are very similar programs in terms of winning. Both have top talent. Both have a winning pedigree. Both have, coaches who do it their way. So I just didn't understand like where that move came from. And I was talking to some of my sources in Jersey, like, why did Hurd of all people leave? And then we come with the news subsequently that Coach Belton was leaving, going to St. Aug. And from that perspective, I understood it. But what is still very puzzling and very baffling to me is why those players are not going to St. Aug. Hurd is a top defensive prospect in Jersey. Roman has a lot of promise and is probably going to contribute to whatever teams he go. He's going to Camden, but he's going to contribute there. He's going to be a solid player. And then the last domino was Jalen Parker, who transferred to Camden. So I'm just trying to figure out, why aren't these guys following Coach Belton to St. Aug? Now, I know with the transfer rules and all that stuff is going to get very chaotic, But I just, from my understanding and from the outside looking in, when you have a coach of um Coach Belton's caliber, and then his staff with Coach Nash, and then the offensive coordinator also going over there too. That was the really telling move of Jalen Parker not going to, the offense, or going with the coaches that have coached him to be the leading touchdown passer in, New Jersey State history. That was really telling to me. And what that says to me is that Coach Belton kind of feels like, I don't want to say that he can do better, but he is looking for an upgrade at quarterback. And if there is a quarterback out there that I think that he should go after Frank Horse from Woodstown, class of 2029. Big, strapping young man. I believe he's like 6'4", 6'5", young buck. Just got an offer, didn't just get an offer, but has an offer from Syracuse. And I think he'd be perfect for whatever Coach Belton is going to decide to run over at St. Aug. He's the new hot South Jersey quarterback that I can think of off the top of my head. I didn't do a ton of research, but he's just a quarterback that, comes to mind when I think of young top quarterback prospects that in Jersey that he can go and get. He's at Woodstown right now. You know, that's honestly something he could think about. Everybody knows that Coach Belton has, all the connections, especially a special connection with Penn State, with him being, a former alum. Fran Brown is connected to all the Jersey programs, so he can get you to pretty much any, Division One program that you want if you go to St. Aug. So I think that should be a quarterback prospect that he goes after. You just gotta be real with it now. Like he said it in his interview, like he's going to St. Aug because he know that the young men can get a great education and they have more resources, and it's a place, that people are going to care. So, why not? All of these public schools recruit, right? And then now it's a situation too, leading me into another point where a lot of these private schools are not under the league rules. Like St. Aug is not under the NJISSA rules, right? So they can pretty much do anything. And what private schools are doing now is they are employing NIL agencies to come and to get all their top players NIL deals. It's currently being done in basketball at Stepniak in New York. So I know it's only going to be a matter of time before it's done in football, where there's a agency that's going to get all of the top players on X non-public team NIL deals. So that is the trend that I know is coming down, and I can very well see a coach such as Coach Belton's stature who will utilize that to win and to get top players to come and play for him. I mean, he already has the pedigree as a coach, as a back-to-back state title winner. That's enough cachet right there in itself. But when you can put money in these kids' pockets too, and then also help them get to the colleges that they're trying to get to, I think Coach Belton is definitely going to create that top South Jersey powerhouse that he spoke of. And I believe they will be competing with the Bergen Catholics and the St. Joe's and the Paramus Catholics and the St. Peter's Prep, all of those schools, that recruit talent throughout Jersey. So I think it's going to be a very interesting here, especially in South Jersey. I don't currently know their schedule right now. And then even now, at St. Aug, they still had talent. Like they still got the wide receiver Collier, still got Bryce Clark. They have some, offensive weapons. So I think they're going to be a pretty solid team, but they got to get a quarterback. And I think that was like one of the biggest things I was holding St. Aug back last year is they did not have a competent quarterback. I'm so sorry I don't want to throw a kid under the bus, but it just is what it is. It's a make or miss league. It's a lose or win game. And he was a lot. Oh, don't let me forget my man Coney too. My man Roman Coney, the running back too, who's a stud. So Coach Belton is going to going to have some pieces, and he's going to be bringing some pieces over, from Winslow. The only player that I'm really interested to see what he does is TJ Maddox from Winslow too, because I haven't heard anything about him yet, and I don't really know, where he's leaning. It makes a lot of sense for him to go there, but you never know. There's a lot of things that always goes on behind the scenes as to why these families move the way that they move. But if I had to crystal ball it, I think I would find TJ Maddox over at St. Aug or Glassboro. So we'll see what goes on with that. But I just kind of want to give my thoughts on, Coach Belton in that move. I think he's gonna do everything that he set his sights to do. I think he's gonna achieve all of the heights that he's out to achieve, and I'm excited. He's one of my favorite coaches in Jersey, and I just love the fact that he doesn't duck any smoke. He doesn't make any excuses. He gets his team ready and prepared to play. He's passionate. He's a leader of men. Has a good staff, and I like that. And he works hard. So I love coaches like that, and I'm rooting for Coach Belton. And I will definitely have a special eye on St. Augustine for this upcoming season. So shout out to them. But now we're gonna move into the Dexter Lawrence trade again, man. Happy draft week to everybody. Like I said, I appreciate this time of year because again, this is the time I spend a lot of precious hours and stuff. He's a diehard Cowboys fan. And so, we always talk about the moves. He always has the moves on deck, as to what's about to go on with Dallas. So we always just go back and forth. And again, this is a time that I cherish. I'm in a space in my life now where I'm cherishing my family a lot more than ever. My parents are getting a lot older. So, I want to make sure that I take these precious moments and cherish them. And I don't, again, take them for granted. And I, just savor every minute because you just never know, when your time is. And this is one of the things that me and my dad both mutually enjoy is watching the draft together. And that's kind of our thing. We get pizza, we get wings, and we do it all. We do the whole shebang, man. So I'm looking forward to that. And so before the draft has even started, we've had two massive trades. So we've had the trade, three, but one got rescinded. So we had the trade of Trent McDuffie to the Rams, right, for the Rams first round pick, and I believe we gave up like a second or something else. Then you had the Max Crosby trade where he was traded to the Ravens at first for 2 first round picks, but that trade got rescinded. And then now we have the trade of Dexter Lawrence being traded to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick. And, as we examine it on both sides, first of all, for the Bengals, pretty much getting, the best nose tackle, one of the best interior defensive tackles there is in the league. I looked at the grades, the PFF grades. Again, PFF got bought by Teamwork, so they haven't really updated everything, which sucks for me. But I looked at the PFF grades, and the Bengals and Giants were the second to last and then third to last in run defense last year. And I don't think Dexter Lawrence had his best year, because I believe he was hurt, but I believe with a change of scenery, I believe he will regain that top nose tackle form. And if you sit and think about it, like whoever the Giants would have got at 10 is probably not going to be better than Dexter Lawrence at this moment in time. You just look at what he has done since he's been in the league. Like he was a big reason as to why the Giants had those one-off playoff runs. I mean, with his ability to, take on double teams and then not only take on double teams, but be effective as a pass rusher, he brings a level of consistency to any defense that he goes. And then you look at it from the Bengals perspective, the Bengals defense have just been a very desolate unit for the better part of Joe Burrow's tenure. Now it's a situation where the Bengals were lacking star power, but now they get a player of Dexter Lawrence's caliber who can immediately make that defense better if he's healthy. Again, their run defense was atrocious, but one can make the argument that Dexter Lawrence was on the Giants and he didn't make their run defense any better, but I think he will make the run defense better. It's a situation where he's getting an extension, so he's getting an extension for 1 year. And it's just something about that is just I believe that's gonna make him play better. Again, he has all the physical attributes. He's dominated games. He's a tough out. If you go back and you look at the Vikings playoff game against the Giants. Like he single-handedly, and I mean that, single-handedly destroyed the Giants and destroyed the Vikings interior offensive line and disrupted that game. And I think if he gets back to that form, he will do that same thing for the Bengals and he will at least improve that defense. They have a very young defensive line, so they let Joseph Asai walk. They still have BJ Hill, I believe. They have Shamar Stewart and a couple of other young pieces. So, he's only going to make those other players better, especially if he's, getting doubled every play. And then, now they can improve that back end. And I feel like the Bengals have a cornerstone piece on defense finally that they can build around. And now they can kind of attack, the draft and free agency just to, get some playmakers across that defense. Um, we know the Bengals issue is not offense. It's not scoring points, it's stopping people. And in this iteration of the NFL where defense matters a little bit more than it used to, I think, you know, they have done themselves a great service by investing in their defense and especially investing in the interior. And if you invest up front, especially in this iteration of the NFL, it usually turns positive. If it's in a top interior offensive lineman or defensive lineman, they usually can help your defense or offense creep back toward average. So that's the kind of move that I see here. Again, this is a lot of this is going to rely on Dexter Lawrence being able to stay healthy. It's just funny. John Harbaugh was saying that he thought that Dexter Lawrence was going to stay, but he did mention like the business part of it was going to be a huge and massive issue. And it turned out to ultimately get him traded. So, but I think it's a win-win for both. Now on the Giant side, they have 2 first-round picks now. They've been talking about them getting Sonny Styles. They've been talking about them getting um Caleb Downs. So either one of those guys I think would be great. I want to see the Giants kind of invest in that old line and protecting Jackson Dart or get him a pass catcher. But they were talking about Jordan Tyson might be the pick, but because of his injury history, I don't know if 5th overall or even 10th overall is a spot where they're looking to take him. But if I'm the Giants, I'm trying to trade back. First of all, I'm trying to get the best O lineman on the board at 5. Then at 10, I want to trade back. I feel like in this day and age, you can find a solid wide receiver, in the second round. So I wouldn't reach for Tyson, even though I really do like him. I just like, honestly, Tyson, and I like his, overall skill set with his ability to catch the football with strong hands, strong route running, his ability to create after catch, his ability to get downfield. There's not really anything he can't do. His big thing is just injuries. And if he had the ability to stay healthy in the league, I think he can, turn himself into a solid wide receiver. But at 5 with somebody with that type of injury past, I don't know. That's like I said, that might be a little bit too rich for my blood. And then on top of that, you go back to 2 drafts ago or last draft. I believe it was 2 drafts or it was 2 drafts ago. And you go and you find a guy like Michael Penix, who had a pretty extensive injury history. And then look at him. He can't stay healthy in the league either. He doesn't suck. He's just not on the field. And we can't use you if you're not on the field. So that's the kind of way I see with Tyson. But let me look at what this mock draft has now that the New York Giants. And see, that was kind of my thought process where I go. I said Tyson, but the Athletics mock draft has the Giants taking running back Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame at the 5th overall pick. And the rationale is they said, to be frank, the Giants hit the jackpot with this trade. New York was already in a great position to add talent to an already intriguing young roster before Harbaugh's first season. Now, the Giants can add 2 premium talents to a hungry group. Love's presence as a true 3-down weapon with legit receiving ability is perfect for Harbaugh ball. I like what they did there. And if New York is hell-bent on landing Styles, it's now the capital to make sure that happens. This should be an exciting draft for the Giants. And see, here's the thing, man. I know I'm gonna get to the mock draft at the end, but see, I'm not for trading up for running backs or drafting running backs that high. The last running back we've seen drafted, I believe, in the top 25 was Jahmyr Gibbs by the Lions. And when the Lions did it, they already had an established offensive line. And then Jahmyr, because they had David Montgomery before they had Jahmyr Gibbs, and they just added Jahmyr Gibbs, and he elevated that offense to what we know and love it to used to be. They lost a lot of their offensive line pieces, but Jahmyr Gibbs definitely has turned himself to one of the premier backs in the league. My point is that the Lions already had structure in place before Jahmyr Gibbs got there. They had the quarterback, they had another running back, they had the wide receivers. I believe JMO and Gibbs were taken in the same draft, and they both hit on them. But I don't feel like the Giants have that similar structure in place. We still don't know what Jackson Dart is, even though he has shown flashes. He's shown the ability to push it down the field. He's definitely shown the ability to be able to take off, but he's got to be smarter with how his body is. He's got to be smarter with the hits that he's taking. Now, from that perspective, I can see why they would want to draft Jeremiah Love, because it will make their offense so much more dynamic. Then you will have Cam Scatterbull being your short yardage back and being able to get those tough yards and get those goal line carries. I like it from that perspective. However, again, they don't have the structure in place to draft a running back 5th overall. That's why I said I would love for them to trade back, trade that 10th pick, let somebody who's desperate to come up to get a quarterback and let them have it, right? And then you go back, because there's not another Jeremiah Love in this draft, right? There isn't another home run running back who's a game changer. Most people consider him to be the best player in the draft. And if that's true, I still 5 is still too rich for me, because if we look at Ashton Genty last year, the Raiders didn't have anything in the works or any type of structure there too. And he had I don't want to say he had a horrible rookie season, but let Max Crosby tell it, he feel like Ashton Genty has so much more left in the tank to prove to everybody. And I agree, right? But we may never be able to see that, because they don't have the offensive line, the requisite offensive line to facilitate a back like Ashton Genty. And so now I'm equating that to the same, situation here with Bryce, with Love here, with why am I calling him Bryce Love? Jeremiah Love. If the Giants had the structure in place for a back like this, then yeah, I'd say I wouldn't take a running back this high, but as long as I can understand your rationale, I'm on for it, and I will understand their rationale. But I think Harbaugh is a smart coach, which is why I talked on live when I did my TikTok live. That's why I talked about him being a home run hire, because I think he's going to build through the offensive line. If you look at a lot of his picks, from the Ravens, a lot of offensive linemen. You had the left tackle from Notre Dame. You had my man from Georgia. These players are Ronnie Stanley. They had Ronnie Stanley. They had the guard from Georgia. Like they've taken offensive linemen. They had the other offensive lineman that they took from the massive one that they took from Morgan, I believe it was, from Minnesota. Like they've taken offensive linemen, and that has worked out. So I think that's what they're going to do here. I think they're going to, in this 5th pick, they're going to take the best O-lineman available, and then take that 10th pick and trade back. That would be the most auspicious thing for the Giants. But again, these mock drafts, sometimes they speak to these scouts, and if they feel like Jeremiah is that player, I mean, go ahead and take him. But I just wouldn't do it. It's a little too rich, for my blood. So that's me on that. That's what I'm saying right now. I just can't. I can never get on the running back high train just because you don't get the full value, out of them. So, but I'll revisit this mock draft later. This isn't even a full mock draft of the first 32 picks. This is only the top 10 picks. So I'm gonna try to find another one. Kansas City, second round. I mean Kansas City 3-round mock or 7-round mock, excuse me. We'll find enough. Oh, wait, full. Okay, here's Dane Brugler's full mock. Yeah, I want the full mock draft. Okay, yeah, here we go. So I'm gonna look at Dane Brugler's after I talk about this question. So there was a question on Instagram today. The question was, in this era of college football, would you rather go to Penn State for $50K NIL and not play, or would you go to the University of Penn and play? And it got me to thinking. It's a nice exercise. It's a nice situation to sit and break down, which way you would go. So I took the stance of I could see both sides of it. I could see positives on both sides. So I'll do the low hanging fruit. The low hanging fruit is you go to Penn State, you make $50K in NIL. And basically what he was saying was, if they're offering you $50K in this day and age of NIL, they basically don't view you as the guy that you think you are, right? They view you as like maybe, second, third stringer, not really playing too much. And that's very well true because, some third string running backs are making $50K a year, and $50K a year, it's okay. It's decent money. It's not, the top of the top, but it's a nice check, I'll say, for a college kid. And so if I have the opportunity to earn, as a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, $50K, and I'm judicious with my money, I'm taking that money and I'm investing it. Nowadays, you have people like me, and you have people, at the college who make sure that these kids take care of their money and put their money in very auspicious spots where it can grow over time and in the direction of their college career. From that point of view, I would definitely say go to Penn State. Also, in addition, depending on what position you are, so for Penn State, edges, linebackers, even wide receivers, if you are playing one of those positions, it may be, especially if your aspiration is to go to the NFL, it may be worth it for you to sit on their bench, because not only do they develop those positions really well, they also have one of, if not the best, strength and conditioning programs in the country. There are so many times that there are so many players from Penn State that are on Bruce Feldman's freak list. You think about guys like Micah Parsons. You think about guys like Jason Odafe Owe. You think about guys like who else was a crazy athletic player for them? I can't think of those two guys always come to mind when it comes to, really solid. Jaquan Brisker, he was a really good defensive player for them who was pretty athletic. Who else? They had another linebacker, Abdul Carter. You think about guys like Abdul Carter, like they developed those defensive positions so much better than a lot of teams in the entire FBS. So from that perspective, if I'm a top edge, if I'm a top linebacker, even a top corner, right? They put Joey Porter Jr., right? That's a corner they just put in the league. Like they put these defensive players, Jaquan Brisker, I just named, they put these defensive players across the entire defense in the league. So if you were a defensive player who was looking to be developed and then looking to be developed physically in terms of your body, becoming a freak athlete, then yes, it is worth it to go to Penn State, sit on a bench and make $50K in NIL. And then as they start winning and as this Big Ten money kick in and these TV rights deals kick in, the money is gonna go up year over year. And then on top of that, it's a situation now. I know a lot of kids hop in a portal because they get cut, but if you're a developmental piece, you'll be able to be got by another team who, because these coaches, they move more than the players move, honestly, right? So if there's a coach that's at Penn State and he goes to Indiana and he knows that you are a good kid who kept his head on his shoulders and was working and developing, and you are something of like an athletic freak, they're gonna come get you and offer you money, right? So from that perspective, on that side, I would say go to Penn State, take the 50K, because you got the ability to make money, and then you got the ability to develop to potentially put yourself in the league. Now, on the other side, and this is the side that he took, he was saying that you should go to UPenn because, number one, you could go, and this is a trend that is going on in high school sports too, because I believe this is what my boy Najee Calhoun is about to do. He was at Bergen Catholic. Well, he was at Donovan Catholic. Then he transferred to Jersey. Then he transferred to Bergen Catholic, had a heck of a career, and then he just committed to Harvard after having offers from North Carolina. Like, he had offers from some solid Division I programs, but he ended up committing to Harvard. And so as a result, I think this is the path that he's taking. And I think this is the mindset that he was coached with. He was saying that you go to UPenn and you play and you dominate that level of competition, right? And once you dominate that level of competition, you become an All-American. And once you become an All-American, you can go up and transfer up and be got by one of these FBS programs, and then you can cash out on NIL. Now, I see the thought process there. And then in addition to that, he was making the case that you also get that degree from UPenn. And I agree that that degree matters a lot. Remember, we have to keep in perspective that football will not last forever, right? Football, at some point in time, even if you go to the pros, it's going to end at some point, and you're going to have a plan B as to what you're going to do, whether that's coaching or going into another skill or another trade or whatever the case may be. You have to have something that you can do outside of football that's going to generate you income. So as a result, having a degree from UPenn definitely matters. UPenn is one of the most prestigious schools. It's an Ivy League school, and so it carries weight, right? My only pushback to that would be this, and it's similarly to the thought process that they say, would you take a dinner with Jay-Z or would you take the $500,000? And even Jay-Z said, you take the money. And that's the situation that I say, we understand again. And then a lot of this depends too on what position you're playing, right? So I'm just going to use what I use. Like if you're an edge, linebacker, or cornerback, right? Those are some pretty valuable positions. Linebacker, edge, and cornerback are pretty valuable positions, right? So if I'll use edge as an example. If I'm a top flight edge, and linebacker for that matter, because there was a kid, I talked about him on one of my previous lives. There was a kid who just got what did he get? Like $650,000 his first year at Texas Tech. So from that perspective, it's just like, 50 times 3 years is $150,000, right? And it's like, do I give up taking the consistent? Because you can always, again, even if you were at Penn State, you can always transfer to another FBS program and still get paid, right? But it's a situation where, if it was me, I wouldn't want to give up the for sure $50,000. And then on top of that, if you went to UPenn, there is no guarantee that you'll be able to use that degree to get a job, because there's so many more factors that matter. You have to network, you have to get into the right rooms, you have to get into the right internships, you have to, have people who like you. And if they don't like you, you won't get. And then now it's a situation where when regular people, regular everyday Americans that I've had conversations and heard them say this, a lot of regular Americans do not like the fact that student athletes who are 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 are getting this type of money. They do not like it. And it's not a race thing. It's black, white, Chinese, Asian, all everybody who is an American who works regular jobs do not like the fact that kids can make student athletes can make just as much money as regular working adults who have been to 4-year degrees, sometimes master's degrees, sometimes done residencies and are doctors. They do not like it. And so again, my point is with the degree at UPenn, there is no guarantee that you're going to find a job that's going to be able to give you the type of money that you're looking for, right? But again, and with that alumni base, with that degree, it can open massive doors for you. I will not, gloss over that. I'm just a person, again, going back to that Jay-Z dinner analogy, order 500,000. I take the money, invest it smartly. And then if I was let's say if I was an edge rusher, right? I'm looking, if I'm not still not playing by year 3, I'm looking, and then on top of that, you get 5 years of eligibility anyway, right? So, I would essentially after 3 years have two more years to make money. I would rather do that. But I don't want to make it seem like his point was invalid, right? Because again, it's all about having a plan, right? And if you went to UPenn, dominated for 3 years, became an All-American, also got that degree from UPenn, again, the doors do open. And so there is it's a conversation on both sides, right? There's a conversation to be had, you know, about each side of it. I do see it happening a lot more where there are certain guys going to the Ivy League and dominating and then playing and then cashing out that third year to get that nice NIL check. And listen, both um both paths are solid paths. My biggest thing is just make sure you have a plan, right? Again, if you're going to be at Penn State making 50K, make sure you taking half that a month and you're having someone invested or you are investing it in safe things or things that are deflationary assets. That's what I would say. This is not financial advice. I'm just saying what I would do. So, or, again, have a plan in terms of, making sure if you're at UPenn, you're getting into the right rooms, talking to people that can help you advance your career. And that's like 90% of it. Making sure you get in front of people or get next to the people that can help you advance your career and that like you and that want to see you succeed. So on both sides, there is good points, and I really don't see a downside to either part of it. So it was a very interesting thought, especially in this new NIL landscape. And I just kind of wanted to just unpack it just a little bit to kind of see where I would fall on it. But I think, like I said, I think both avenues are good, and giving our kids and our student athletes opportunities to further their careers and have them find something they can do beyond playing football. So I'm with it both. So again, as we sojourn to the last part of this, again, happy draft week. And so now I just want to get into some of these mock drafts, man. I want to get into um, what some of these picks are gonna be. We've seen before in this draft that it doesn't have as much hype in this draft because there isn't a lot of top quarterback prospects. And that's just really what it is. Like everyone's always talking about next year is when all of the top quarterbacks are coming out. And that's cool, but you never know. The draft is such a crapshoot. Like there is no guarantee that out of the 32 picks that's about to be chosen in the first round, there is no guarantee that any of these guys are going to be good. So the guys that they're saying aren't that good, or maybe just a backup player, man, these guys may end up being all pros. Now, I will say that the scouting has gotten a lot better, specifically because of some of the advances that PFF has given to these scouts, and these grades, help with the evaluation. But for the most part, the draft is still a crapshoot. And, as much as people are saying again that this isn't, a rich draft, I still want to give these players, they're just due, right? Because you just don't know. You don't know who's going to be the next Melvin Ingram. You don't know who's going to be the next Antonio Brown. You don't know who's going to be the next Justin Jefferson, right? And I always err on the side of positivity, especially when it comes to players, because my biggest thing is that most people are impatient with these players and they don't give them time to grow and get better. But on the flip side of that, too, and I want to make sure I say this, I sit and go to bat for players who be doing absolutely stupid stuff and make people come after him, i.e., Keon Coleman. Now, I will give him a tad bit of grace, right? Because I was listening to my boy, not my boy, he is definitely not my boy. I was listening to Stevie Johnson talk about how Keon Coleman is still new to the wide receiver position, and it's very easy to pick on him now, especially at after what Ralph Wilson did. Not Ralph Wilson, I'm sorry. Pagula, after what Pagula did to him by embarrassing him, he's very easy to pick on. So I don't want to pile on Keon Coleman. However, he makes it very easy to pile on him when you come into the league, you laughy, jokey, ha 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 ha, and then we find out that you can't even wake up for meetings. Like, this is the type of stuff that pisses me off, because it's like I want to have patience with players, but I can't have patience with you because you can't even wake up for meetings on time. Because there was a point in time Keon Coleman was actually playing really well. So I always ask myself, what happened between, I know he got hurt too, but what happened between the time he got hurt and was balling, right? Between the time he was balling and then he got hurt to then what was that last season where he was a healthy scratch 3 times, and then it came out that he couldn't get to meetings on time because he couldn't wake up. And then his teammates were saying like, yo, he's got to grow up. Like, those are the types of things you don't want to hear, especially after going to bat for a player. When they drafted Keon Coleman, I was very optimistic as to what he could be. He's very athletic, basketball player. Like, he had all of the traits that you would say, yeah, we can see him being, a productive, wide receiver. And he, for the most part, he has made some spectacular plays in the league. It's not like he sucks. It's just his habits. And we are a collection of our habits. And so the fact that your habits aren't reflecting you being the wide receiver that the Bills drafted you to be, that doesn't really sit well with me. And then moving into the mock draft, like I said, I want to make sure that I give these players these just due, because I want to see. So I'm just looking here to see like what would be some of my, favorite picks of this draft. Obviously I've got on live and talked about Fernando Mendoza many times. And he is projected to be the first overall pick. So Vegas is going to take, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, first overall. I think everyone unanimously agrees that he will be the first overall pick. And I think after that national championship performance, I think he deserves it. He's shown that he can be gritty. He's shown that he can make tough throws, show that he can throw it in the tight windows, shown that he can be a cerebral player. And I think if he is given the proper infrastructure, offensive line, playmakers, solid coach, and they have Clint Kubiak, so I think he will do the job. Got Brady on a great ownership group. If he has these things, I do think he can be a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback year in and year out. I do get that off him. He strikes me as a young man who has a good head on his shoulders. Of course, he's a Christian man, believes in God, and that's really what sticks out to me, more than anything. So as a result of that, I'm rooting for him, and I hope, he puts in the requisite work that it takes to be a solid NFL quarterback. And I hope Brady gives a more hands-on approach in this aspect and allows and will, not allow, but will coach just a little bit, because I know coaches don't like they told stuff done, but we'll coach Fernando up just a little bit. Show him the ropes, show him what he's supposed to do against this protection. all the things that we hope that Brady will do. So I like that pick. Then we have, the Jets taking Arvell Reese, who I think is the best defensive player in this draft, most versatile defensive player, maybe besides Caleb Downs. But I think this would be a home run pick, not home run, because I do think the Jets need actual playmakers to go opposite Garrett Wilson. So this could be a Carnell Tate spot. I don't know. I just want to see. They definitely need a quarterback, even though they got Geno. They still need, a franchise quarterback. They may be waiting until next year, and so because the thing is, I think that the Jets could survive without having Arvell Reese. Now, I did say he's the best defensive player in this draft, and I'm standing on that. But I think if they didn't have Arvell Reese and Aaron Glenn just like coached a really good defensive year, I think they'd still be straight. And then I'd rather trade back and get a pass rusher. I'd rather get a playmaker, not a pass rusher. The rationale here is a pass rusher, be it Reese or David Bailey, appears to be the Jets' favorite. Reese isn't a tweener. He's a whatever you want him to be, edge defender. He can set an edge, play off, or be a full-time pass rusher. That type of hybrid skill set can be utilized. And that's a fact. It can be utilized. I just don't think out of everything that the Jets need, I just don't think Arvell Reese is going to be that piece that's going to get them over the hump. First of all, they don't have the infrastructure in terms of ownership. How many times have we heard how Woody Johnson meddles into the business, right? Or the football decisions, and they haven't been able to get it right for almost a decade. So I am not confident. Like, I actually think Aaron Glenn is a good coach. I know a lot of people don't think he is, but I think he's a good coach. He is just only a product of the infrastructure that they don't have. And if they had an infrastructure, I think he can do a way better job. I thought it took balls to tell Aaron Rodgers that I'm good. And then on top of that, they didn't start off the best. He thought Justin Fields was going to be somebody, and he turned out to not be what they thought he could be. And I still have faith in Justin Fields. I still hope Justin Fields, becomes the quarterback that we all thought he could be for the Bears and for the Jets and all of these other teams that he was on. Now he's on the Chiefs, and I hope he does a lot better at the Chiefs. I believe he will, because Andy always gets the best out of quarterbacks. But going back to the Jets, I just think they are better served to get a playmaker. Like I said, maybe Tate, but maybe this is too high for Tate, but to get the best defensive player in the draft. And then on top of that, like, even though I think Aaron Glenn is cool, like, how long is he actually going to really be there? Because if he has another season like he had last year, he's going to be on his way out the door. And that's a fact. And I'll be willing to stand on that. And I'm not saying that because I don't like him. I'm saying because what we've seen from history, and I will stick by this, that black coaches get the shortest leash. I'm not a race guy. I don't make everything about race. But what I have seen the trend to be with black coaches and minority coaches, that they have the shortest leashes. So just want to throw that out there. Here's an interesting pick. It's not a sexy pick, but I can understand it. You have the Arizona Cardinals taking Francis Muaga, offensive tackle out of Miami. The rationale is it won't be surprising if the Cardinals use this pick on a pass rusher, such as David Bailey, but the idea of securing their right tackle position for the foreseeable future will be an appealing option. It will be interesting to see if the Cardinals receive any valuable trade offers to move back. I would love for them to move back too. Also, with new coach, I believe it's not Mike LaFleur. Yeah, I think it's Mike LaFleur coming in. I believe that he's learned from McVay. I believe that he's learned so much from McVay that he understands that having a solid O-line is the foundation and the structure for everything. Again, if you don't have an O line, you have nothing. And as you see with the Rams offense, The O line is like everything. If you can't protect that quarterback, you have nothing. You can't play in rhythm on time. You can't run the ball. Can't do any of these play action fakes that they love to do. Or you can't do, especially you can't do any of these long developing routes that they like to do down the field too. I'm not saying LaFleur is gonna do a carbon copy of McVay's offense, but with that structure, a lot of it relies on giving the quarterback time in the pocket to survey and letting those downfield routes develop. So I actually like this pick. I actually think this might be a pick that they make. It may not be Francis Moaga, it may be somebody else, but I do think being judicious and doing the non-sexy pick and taking an offensive tackle, I think would be the best move for Arizona. I've heard them being running to take Ty Simpson. And I saw that on another mock draft too, that they'll take Ty Simpson. What was it at 20? I think it was. Let me see. No, so 20 is Cleveland's pick, but I thought Arizona had another pick. But in any event, I would love for them to take an offensive tackle because that's what they need. And I think that's what he's gonna do just because he's a disciple of McVay. And I believe he coached with Kyle Shanahan too. And then obviously, they all coach together. So McVay, Shanny, and then Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, they all coach together at Washington. And they all coach under uh Mike Shanahan. So we'll see. But I like this. I like this pick. Tennessee, they have them taking David Bailey. New York Giants, that's an interesting pick. They have New York Giants taking Caleb Downs, number 5 to Ohio State. Number 5 from Ohio State, excuse me. And I don't I don't hate this pick. And I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna compare him to Ed Reed because I believe Nick Saban was on record saying that Caleb Downs is probably the smartest player he's ever coached. So I know when Harbaugh hears that, he's gonna automatically compare him to Ed Reed. He had Ed Reed for a little bit, and so I know this is gonna come. I want to read it. The rationale says over John Harbaugh's 18 years as a head coach in Baltimore, the Ravens drafted 9 positions in round 1, including safety 3 times, so a third of the time. Though using a top 5 pick for the position is uncommon, Downs has rare football intelligence and despite not testing in any drills, is above the line in terms of off-field athleticism. That definitely screams Ed Reed to me. That rationale that was just given screams Ed Reed. And I know Coach Harbaugh is looking at this like, yeah, we definitely got to get him. So I would rather take Downs at 10 than 5. And I would love for the Giants to trade one of these picks and go back and just get more talent on a roster. And then you could trade 10 to go down to maybe like 15 or 16. And then you can get Jordan Tyson there. And then one of these picks could be used on the best offensive lineman in the draft. Like if you don't think so, if Mwaga's off the board, then there's Monroe Freeland from Georgia, who they keep talking about as a project. And I would love the Giants to get more linemen that are ready to play right now. But on the overall landscape of just offensive linemen in general, none of these guys are really ready to play right away. And that's going in college and into the league. None of these guys are ready to play right away. So it might be a situation where they trade back twice. I doubt that's going to happen. That's just my greediness. But I mean, I think it wouldn't be a bad move to trade one of these picks back and just accumulate more good players. And then, you just lost Dexter Lawrence for the Giants. And, now you have a massive hole in the middle. Only, solid defensive lineman there is Brian Burns. You don't know what you're going to do with Kayvon Thibodeau. So maybe they shock us all and take an edge or take another, there is no top interior defensive lineman that they probably would take. So we'll see, man. The Giants have so many moves to make. So we'll see what they do. All right. Going down. Let's see. Who else? Who else? Dallas. They think they're gonna take a Sonny Styles. Don't hate that. Washington Commanders could take Jeremiah Love. I keep hearing that. Carnell Tate to the Saints. The Saints have had really good um, luck with Ohio State wide receivers. Obviously, Michael Thomas. And they currently have Olave, so they've done really well. Chiefs take Ruben Bang. Cincinnati takes Mansour Delane, cornerback from LSU. And this is a mock draft from On the Athletic that I'm looking at right now from Dane Brugler. So all 7 rounds. So I'm just doing it. I'm just looking at the first round. Then we have Miami Dolphins taking Keldrick Falk from Auburn. Um, Cleveland Brown takes Spencer Fano. They have my Rams taking Jordan Tyson. I don't hate that pick for us. And then after us, they have Baltimore taking Kenyon Sadiq. So I'm gonna go to the Rams pick first. They said the Rams could go in several directions here, but wide receiver is the most fun outcome. It makes sense for the organization long term. Plenty of evaluators around the league believe a fully healthy Tyson will be in the mix for wide receiver one in this class. That he was limited during the draft process might not matter as much to the Rams as it might for others. Listen, I don't really hate this pick. If you look at our wide receiver core as a whole, let's start with the crown jewels. Puka Nacua was the crown jewel, but after his whole situation with this young lady and then checking himself into rehab, it's just like, can I really count on him to be this franchise wide receiver that we need? I mean, we're gonna have to pay him a pretty penny, and we can't have you in and out of rehab. I'm not saying it's never been done where there's a wide receiver that has issues and that's been doing drugs and partying that's still able to play. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for a young man such as him who is gonna put himself in a position to earn life-changing money, you don't want them to have questions about you. And the fact that this is even a situation where they're thinking about taking Jordan Tyson to be our number one receiver, it's just a red flag for me in terms of Puka. Like where his head is at. Then you have Devontae Adams, who is an older guy. He has 1 year left on his deal. He's gonna be productive in this McVay offense. I mean, but he's clearly lost a step. He's still productive, but I would like to have a younger receiver at that wide receiver 2 spot. We don't really have a number 3 right now because we just let what's his name? Tutu Atwell go to Miami. So we don't really have a number 3. We have a plethora of tight ends in terms of Kobe Parkinson's, Terrence Ferguson, and then we have my guy from Western Kentucky, Tyler Higbee. Like, so we have a bunch of tight ends. So theoretically, they probably only really looking for two consistent wide receivers with a deep threat that McVay can use as a decoy. That seems to be a formula that works. And then we just run the ball really well. Even for my Rams, like, I like Jordan Tyson. 13, I'd be okay with. Again, like I said before at the beginning of the live, it's just the injury history is really, really bugging me. You know what I mean? And so, but see, with us though, he will have opportunity to develop. He can do everything. So I don't think he would have really much of a learning curve. I think he could play, the F for us. I think he can be on the outside. I think he can do it all. So I can see on that side of it, that perspective of why they would take Tyson. Like I said, if they did, I'd be all for it. But again, I would love for us, to trade back. I believe we have another first round pick. Do we? I thought we did. I know we traded one away, but I thought we had two. Okay. No, we just got one first round pick. So we might trade out of this spot, honestly, because the Rams are notorious for not only trading out of the first round and trading their first round picks, but playing their draft picks and getting a lot out of them. I mean, as I've said before in previous lives, our whole front four are all Rams draft picks between what's his name? Fisk, the other edge rusher that talks a lot of junk. Dang, why is his name escaping me right now? Like, what am I doing? Kobe Turner, Young. Who is the other guy? Byron. Like, it's not Byron. It's bro. It's crazy how things just be slipping my mind. Like, I'm not that I'm not that old, bro. Like, what is going on? Jared Verse. Golly, like, why did that take so long? Jared Verse. So they're all draft picks. And so we've revamped the corner room with Trent and with Jalen Watson. So I love that. Cam Curl's coming back. Cam Kitchens is gonna come back. I would really love for us to get a linebacker that can not this high, but I would really love for us to get a linebacker that can make a difference on the defense. So we got a couple holes to fill to plug. Nothing crazy. This is really like a luxury pick for the Rams. That's why I think they should trade back so they can get something for next year and maybe like an extra second or third in this draft. And then obviously, like I just finished mentioning, like we will play our draft pick. So I think that'll be the best move for us. So all right, y'all, man. It's creeping up on an hour. And I appreciate y'all. I think I got through my topics pretty cleanly. I feel like I got some good content, man. If you're watching this live, you can please go subscribe on YouTube. I post shorts every day. And I'm gonna continue to do that. Um, I don't really I try to go live on TikTok, but for some reason StreamYard won't let you go live on TikTok. So that kind of sucks. But I do have a pretty decent following on Twitter. So I would like to tap into that going live. So, follow follow my Twitter if you aren't following me on Twitter already. Again, just keep supporting. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate, the 9 to 10 people that decided to watch my live today. I greatly appreciate that. I don't take any of this for granted. Um, if you are a God-fearing person, please keep me in prayer. Just for my future endeavors and things that I got going on, things that Glory to Glory has going on. Just keep us in prayer that we, stay steadfast. We always pray for relational prosperity, so pray for that. I also ask that you just, pray for, you know, our ability to bring something fresh to the game and never get tired of that, right? And then we keep God at the forefront of everything. So until next time, everybody. Like I said, I'm gonna try to be as consistent on live as I possibly can. I appreciate y'all, man, and catch me next time when I stream.